I'm sorry my daughter couldn't be here today. She's busy with medical school. On the day of our family's pre-wedding meeting, she was so caught up in her studies that she couldn't make it. This left an empty seat at the table, which was meant for the groom's family. Seeing my worried expression, my future in-laws apologized, looking embarrassed. Even though I had asked her to come, she didn't show up. My husband, Daniel, sighed about his sister and lowered his head respectfully to my family. We told them it was okay, and they looked relieved. My mother-in-law mentioned she wanted us to get along with their daughter, and I happily agreed. At that time, I didn't think much of it. My in-laws and Daniel had made a good impression on me, so I assumed his sister would be the same. My name is Lily, and I'm 33 years old. I married my husband 2 months ago, and we're planning to have our wedding ceremony next year. Around the time of the family meeting, my mother became ill and had to be hospitalized, so we decided to delay the ceremony until she fully recovered. Since she always dreamed of seeing me as a bride, we wanted to wait. In the meantime, I'm focusing on being a housewife. Before I got married, I worked as a doctor at a hospital, but the job became too stressful. It affected both my health and daily life. Even though I wanted to quit, I felt responsible for my patients and stayed longer than I should have. Eventually, with the encouragement of my loved ones, I left. Maybe working at a big hospital wasn't for me. I struggled with feelings of failure, but then I met Daniel. After dating for a while, we got married. Daniel comes from a humble background, so he was surprised to learn I used to be a doctor. But instead of being intimidated, he saw me for who I was. He promised to always make me smile and worked hard to keep that promise. Now, I focus on cooking and housework to make his life easier. His love and support have helped me recover, and I've been thinking about returning to work as a doctor again. Our life together is happy, but there's one issue: Daniel's sister, Emily. She's a busy medical student. My in-laws said she would come to the family meeting, but she didn't show up because she was studying. I heard she passed all her exams on the first try, which shows how talented she is. Since our wedding was soon after that, we never had the chance to meet. I hoped we'd get to know each other someday. One afternoon, Daniel and I were out shopping for furniture and tableware when we decided to take a break. Just then, a voice called out, "Hey, isn't that Daniel?" He turned around, and I followed his gaze. Standing there was a striking young woman wearing a revealing dress, high heels, and heavy perfume. "Emily, what are you doing here?" Daniel asked. The woman, Emily, looked me up and down, making me feel uneasy. Then Daniel introduced us. "Lily, this is my sister, Emily." "Oh, so you're Emily. Nice to meet you," I said politely, bowing slightly. She wasn't what I had imagined, but I didn't want to judge based on appearance. Just as I thought that, Emily smirked. "So, this is my sister-in-law? My brother is handsome, makes good money, and he married such a plain, older woman. I don't get it," she said bluntly. Her words shocked me. It's true that Daniel is 4 years younger than me, attractive, and earns a high salary at a big pharmaceutical company. I could understand if someone thought we were an unusual match, but for her to say it so directly to my face was unbelievable. As I realized we might not get along, Daniel stepped in. "That's really rude, Emily. You didn't even show up for the family meeting because you only cared about yourself," he scolded her. She just laughed. I had a group date that day. I was stunned. I thought she had been too busy studying, but she had just chosen to go on a date instead. Seeing Daniel getting angry, I stepped in to prevent a fight between them. "Well, at least we've met now. Let's try to get along from here, okay, Emily?" I said, hoping to lighten the mood. She gave me a sharp look. "By the way, what do you do for a living?" she asked. "I'm going to be a doctor, so don't get too comfortable with me." Her arrogant attitude caught me off guard. Had I done something to offend her? She seemed determined to look down on me. "I'm a full-time housewife," I answered calmly. Emily immediately scoffed. "A housewife? That's just a fancy way of saying you're unemployed. I can't believe my brother married someone like you. Are you just living off his money?" Her words made my blood boil. She clearly had no respect for housewives. I tried to stay calm, but it was hard to ignore her rudeness. "Emily, stop. Lily isn't who you think she is," Daniel said firmly. "It's okay, Daniel," I reassured him, gently placing a hand on his arm. I knew I had to handle this carefully to avoid a bigger conflict. It didn't take long to figure out what kind of person my sister-in-law was. She was obviously smart, her academic success proved that, but her attitude left a lot to be desired. "Becoming a doctor is a great goal. It's a tough journey, so keep working hard," I said with a warm smile. She scoffed. "Excuse me? Someone without a job has no right to lecture me, and just so you know, since I'm still a student, I'm not expected to give my brother a wedding gift." Her condescending tone never let up, and it was clear Daniel had enough. With a tired sigh, he waved her off. "Just go," he said. Emily huffed. "I tried to talk to you, and you're being so ungrateful." "Whatever, I'm busy too." See you later. After she walked away, Daniel turned to me and bowed his head apologetically. I'm so sorry about my sister, she was really rude. She used to be more thoughtful, I swear. I gave him a reassuring smile. It's fine, honestly, my opinion of her just went downhill, but I'd rather not cause a fight between you two. We'll just keep our distance from now on. Thank you for standing up for me. Let's go have some tea and shake this off. How about some good coffee instead? Daniel suggested, and I smiled. Seeing me in a better mood, he nodded in relief. A few days later, I arrived at a large hospital nearby, carrying flowers and a small bag with a change of clothes. I knocked gently on the door of a private room. Mom, it's Lily, how are you feeling? I asked as I stepped inside. My mother greeted me with a warm smile from her hospital bed. I visited her regularly, helping her with small tasks and making sure she was comfortable. Today, she seemed to be doing well. My brother, Ethan, stood nearby, just putting away his stethoscope. He worked as a doctor at the hospital and was keeping a close eye on our mother's condition. Seeing his familiar face, I smiled naturally and softened my tone. Hey, Ethan, it's been a while, I said. Yeah, he replied with a small smile as he continued taking notes about our mom's condition. I set my bag down and sat in the round chair next to my mom's bed. Dad was here earlier, but he had to leave for a conference, Ethan mentioned. That's too bad. It would have been nice to catch up together. Mom chuckled at the thought. You know, this hospital is run by your father. It's a little surreal to think that I used to work here as a doctor, just like him and your brother. This place feels like both my childhood home and my former workplace. We chatted for a while, enjoying each other's company. After some time, my mom let out a soft sigh. I think the medicine is kicking in. I'm getting sleepy. I gently tucked the blanket around her. Ethan and I exchanged a knowing smile. It seemed like she was finally at ease. Leaving her room, my brother and I sat on a sofa in the hospital lobby. Are you and Daniel doing well? Ethan asked. I nodded, smiling. Yes, we're really happy together. He chuckled and playfully patted my head. He's always been protective of you, even after you got married. We were all worried when you left your job at the hospital. Meeting Daniel was the best thing that ever happened to me, I admitted. He helped me recover in ways I never expected. As we continued talking, a nurse approached Ethan, and he stood up. I'll be right back, just wait here, he said before heading off to check on a patient. Watching him walk away, I thought about how busy he must be. As my father's successor, he had so many responsibilities, so even getting a few minutes to chat with him felt like a rare moment. Sitting there alone, I felt a pang of nostalgia, like I was out of place in the hospital I once belonged to. Just as I was lost in thought, a loud, familiar voice interrupted the quiet. Well, if it isn't jobless Lily. I turned to see Emily standing there, smirking at me. She dragged out the word jobless in a way that stung, but I kept my expression calm and polite. Hi, Emily, I'm here to visit my mom. Since this is a hospital, could you lower your voice? I said, trying to avoid a scene. But she ignored my request, still speaking loudly. Wait, your mom is in the hospital? I'm here today for my internship, she said in surprise. I had already guessed she might be interning here, since she was a medical student at a nearby university. What I hadn't expected was running into her like this, or how out of place she looked in the hospital setting. Her makeup was bold, her hair was loosely tied, and her outfit didn't exactly scream professionalism. While I knew medical students had busy schedules, I couldn't help but wonder if she understood the importance of looking professional around patients. I glanced around and noticed a few doctors and medical students standing behind Emily. Some were my old colleagues, and the others must have just realized who I was. Their faces were pale with shock. To them, Emily probably looked like an arrogant medical student being rude to the hospital director's daughter. Worried that my sister-in-law's loud voice might disrupt the hospital's peaceful atmosphere, I tried to suggest we move elsewhere. Emily, could you lower your voice? You're bothering people, I said. Emily interrupted me with an exaggerated sigh, almost like she was trying to get a reaction. Wow, a worthless daughter snags a rich guy, huh? I bet your mom's relieved. You're probably making him pay for her hospital bills, just like the trashy pair you two are, she sneered, making sure everyone around us heard her insult. I noticed the doctors and medical students frowning at her disrespect, as well as the patients nearby who were clearly uncomfortable. Being humiliated in front of others and hearing my mother insulted pushed me to the limit. Hey, you need to stop this, one of the doctors spoke up, unable to stay silent anymore. But Emily just laughed, brushing him off. She deserves to be put in her place, she said dismissively. The doctor, now clearly fed up, looked at her with disapproval and said, your behavior could ruin your career. Emily didn't seem to understand the seriousness of his words. At that moment, my brother walked back into the lobby. He noticed the tension between me and Emily, and the uncomfortable vibe around us. He tilted his head, clearly puzzled. "Oh, Ethan," I greeted him. As soon as Emily saw my brother, her attitude changed completely. I couldn't believe how quickly she shifted. It was like watching someone play the hypocrite. She altered her tone, put on a smile, and walked over to him, suddenly looking different. Ethan is young, talented, and very attractive, even his sister couldn't deny that. As the future leader of the hospital, he was well known and well liked, and I could tell Emily was now trying to get his attention. "Lily, what's going on?" she asked, glaring at me while addressing my brother by his first name. I was shocked, and Ethan slowly backed away from her, replying, "Well, yeah." Not satisfied with his response, she pressed on. "But you know she's married, right? Didn't you know that? You should be careful, Ethan, given how popular you are." Her whiny voice grated on my nerves, and I realized she saw me as some kind of competition for my brother's attention. "I mean, she's my sister, after all," Ethan said, causing Emily to freeze in surprise. I couldn't help but stifle a laugh at her shocked expression, standing there completely dumbfounded. The doctor who had stepped in earlier whispered something to Ethan, likely explaining the situation. His expression quickly turned serious. "Wait, so Lily is the daughter of the hospital director?" he asked, turning to me for confirmation. I nodded, confirming for Emily's benefit. "Yes, I'm his daughter. I used to work here as a doctor, but I had to quit due to health issues. Now, I'm focusing on recovery and working as a full-time housewife, doing my best with housework." My words left Emily looking pale. I had heard from my husband that she was hoping to get a job at the hospital. It seemed like she had just realized that her insulting comments about me and my mother had severely ruined her chances of getting hired here. On top of that, her dreams of marrying into wealth were likely crushed as well. I glanced at Ethan, feeling a slight sting. "Unbelievable," he muttered under his breath. It seemed my sister-in-law had never caught his interest. "Though I've heard you're quite talented as a medical student," I added. Her shoulders stiffened, and she looked a little panicked. "Calling someone trash and mocking them before you've even become a doctor shows a major problem," I continued. "If you can't see that, then you're not qualified to be a doctor. You need to reflect on your actions." The people around us nodded in agreement. My sister-in-law, who had once looked down on me, was now being publicly lectured. Even Ethan seemed disappointed. It was a lot for her to take, but I didn't want her to keep making these mistakes. As a doctor, we not only have the duty to save lives but also to empathize with our patients, I added. "I don't get it," Emily muttered, clearly feeling uncomfortable. She turned quickly and stormed off, ignoring the nurse who told her to slow down. In her rush, she tripped and fell dramatically. Ethan and I exchanged a look and chuckled. 6 months later, Emily had become completely isolated. After mocking me at the hospital, her pride led her to drink heavily, and she ended up seriously injuring herself and needing hospitalization. It was ironic, she had to rely on the same system she had disrespected. It seemed like she was starting to understand her own arrogance. "I'm so ashamed. I want to apologize to Lily," her parents told me. She spent her time reflecting on her actions and eventually took a break from medical school, planning to change her ways after her recovery. It would be a tough road, but she seemed determined. As for me, I found a new job as a medical doctor at a pharmaceutical company. I now focus on researching and developing drugs, making sure new medications are safe. Even though my father and brother suggested I return to the hospital, I've decided to begin a new chapter elsewhere. My mother's health improved enough to receive home care, and she's looking forward to attending my wedding next year.